I'm Craig Beaumont-Flynn. Welcome to Beyond the Design, a show that gives you a peek behind the curtain of the design industry and shares the stories of those that are the driving force behind it. Well, welcome to Beyond the Design, and today it's our honor to have Dan D'Agostino. Did I say that properly?
You certainly did.
Oh, good. Well, welcome to the show. It's nice to have you, and thank you for taking some time to chat with us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm a fan of the podcast, so I appreciate you making some time for me here.
Oh, fantastic. We'd like to hear that. Well, why don't we just go ahead and jump right into it, and you can tell us a little bit about your story, your journey of what you do and as a creative visionary.
So the journey, that's a loaded question. How long do we have?
You got to start somewhere in the beginning.
Yeah. All right. So what do? So I'm an architect. I specialize in single family homes, principally just outside of Manhattan. So I'm in Bergen County, New Jersey, and we do anywhere from 70 to 100 high-end custom homes. I have 25 architects and designers that work with me at Plan Architecture. And I started, back in 2014, my wife and I, we were expecting our first child. And I said, I just don't see myself working anymore. If I'm going to do it, working for someone anymore, if I'm going to do it, now is the time. And it was only supposed to be this thing that I work out of my house and it'd be great. And I'll come and go as I please. And I just kept going since then. We had our first couple of years were in my house with one or two employees as I got busier. And then we just kept moving from office to office to office. And here we are. The only limitation is the hours in the day right now.
Right. Too short.
Yeah.
So what are some of the key factors you consider when you start a project and you start designing a residential?
So, everything starts with the site. When we meet a person, they usually have a couple of things that they've thought about: the number of bedrooms, the number of bathrooms. Some of them want the size of the house. They think a lot about Pinterest, right? What is Pinterest telling us that we should do? In fact, there's a book called The Pinterest House by Diane Keaton, which is a very cool house to look at. She figured out how to make it cohesive. But, I sit down with these people and I try to make the process not about building a house, right? I ask them those specific questions, but our first meeting, and I don't give them any prompt. I ask them, what is it that you want to see? How are you going to feel the first time you walk through the house as soon as you're done with the construction? And you'd be astonished at how few people, and no one has an answer to that. So I think that that's one of the things that I've started doing. And that created a whole process in and of itself. I realized that getting people at the table and talking to them, not so much about the house they want, but how they want to feel in that house, which is not intuitive. It's not something we think about in architecture school. I know you went through architectural training, and it's more about how you can perform as an architect than it is how you're going to make your clients. It's like, how do you want I remember a professor saying, well, how do you want people to feel in your space? Well, I'd rather create a space that's going to make a person feel the way that they want to feel in that space. And that's just been the trajectory for me.
Very cool. So what is the process if someone comes to you and you hire them, or they hire you? And you do hire a client as well, because you can fire them at some point as well. What is the process for you in starting that relationship?
So
I call it dating, because it's just like dating. You have to make sure you like each other and you communicate. And
I'm glad that you're saying that, because I'm at the part of my journey where I'm learning that, right? When you first start and when you're in grow mode, you're taking everything you can possibly get. And you're being a bit of a chameleon in the beginning, because you start to hear what the people are saying. And when you're a good listener, you can sort of pick up the cues that a person's going to need to hear in order to work with you. The average client comes to us through Instagram, believe it or not.
Wow.
We have over
Social
35,000.
media works.
I honestly don't know if I would have the company I have if it wasn't for social media.
Really?
Because, yeah, I mean, we've done a lot of partnerships over the years. There are some really influential social media personalities that have trusted us very early in our career to do homes for them. Kate Rumson from Real Houses of Instagram. She has 3 million followers, and we designed her house, and people followed along as we were doing that house. They'd vote for what front door. Should we do a basement? Should there be 2 or 3 garage doors? So that got us a lot of exposure. And then, most recently, we did a home for Joe and Melissa Gorga from the Real Housewives of New Jersey. And that got crazy, but like it went viral. I mean, some of the post of our renderings in the front of the house got over 250,000 views. Our account jumped 2,500 followers. Now, these are not all clients, right? These are people
Right.
that are fans of Real Housewives of New Jersey that are now showing their friends some of the things that we're doing. And social media has been the starting point. And it's not uncommon for people to sit down with us at that first meeting and show us, like, you posted this. Like, I laugh because I don't have it committed to memory, right? They're like, well, the thing that you posted on July 8th of 2021, give me a second. I'm going to roll through it. And believe it or not, I'm still the one that's doing the posting, which is the great thing about this. We'll do hundreds of thousands of dollars in print and other publications, which it's great. It's important to do. But like literally 10 minutes of my day just taking the last set of renderings that we did while I'm waiting for a meeting to start. You can't beat that. And I also find that I don't even tell people my website any longer. I really don't. I tell them, here's my Instagram, and it's a great opportunity for me right there with them. Punch the name in, another follower, and then they're keeping in touch. And then again, people come to me and they know who I am. I was saying that a little bit about your podcast. I feel like I've gotten to know a little bit about who you are just through watching your past episodes. People feel that way. And they'll say things to me like, how your backyard is. I'm like, whoa, how do you know how my backyard is open to my dining area? And it's flattering, but at the same time, that tool is getting us to like the second or third meeting at our first meeting, so to speak.
So the name of your firm is Plan Architecture. How'd you come up with that name? Where did it come from?
I am the least egotistical person that you'll meet in architecture. I would love to make that a trademark because I really don't look at this as like you're not coming to Dan D'Agostino Associates. When I started the company, I just wanted something that was like very blanket, something that was easy to find. So as lame as it sounds, I thought, what would people Google? They'd Google architecture plans. So I just flipped the 2 words around. But as time went on, I discovered that this is great because as much as I'm performing architecture for clients that want to hire us to do something unique for them, I've also created a studio where people that want to work but not have their own business and have creativity and own their own projects, they flock to my company as well. And, Plan Architecture is the parent company, but we also have Plan Interiors, which is also right now we're a group of 6 interior designers that are all full-time interior designers. They only work on projects that started with us as architects. And that's a subset within it. So it's created this collaborative design studio that mimics the architectural studio environment.
Got it. So is most of the sector that you work in is all residential?
Yeah. I mean, we'll take on a multifamily here and there for a client that has asked us to do that. What we found is that the clients that hire us to do their homes, they're looking for something other than just an architect, right? To do an apartment building, especially in our area, you need an architect. And our firm doesn't really look to compete with architects that are just performing the necessary duty to get people approvals and get involved. And we've done those projects, and it never feels natural for me.
Hmm.
I always felt myself wanting for more. So we started taking on single family homes, and it morphed, right? It's almost like I think my clients are in competition with one another to have the most unique design or the most custom aesthetic. And that's why we do single family. We'll do a restaurant here and there. We'll do a multifamily home. We've got one that's almost 400 units across 7 buildings, and we're doing streets, and that's fun because they're letting us really design. But we're really breaking the box here.
I mean, you're in such a high concentrated area where you're probably getting competition from international firms and firms from out of state and outside the area. What do you think makes your firm unique as it is?
So there are a couple of things. It's so funny you say that because I'm like a fan of architecture, right? I'm the type that I end the day and I'm still looking at magazines, and I'll do our architectural competitions. And a year and a half ago, we were bidding against Tadeo Ando, and he's one of my absolute favorite architects. And I was like, God, I lost there was no shot. Like, it's me, the guy from Jersey who's got an Italian last name, and Tadeo Ando. I think what happens is that I hit it off with a lot of people. We are I'm 20 minutes west of the George Washington Bridge. So most of our clients are C-class executives in the city that have lived in Manhattan. They have 1 or 2 kids. They're looking to move out to the burbs. So there are 2 centers in our area. One is Bergen County, where you've got Alpine, Tenafly, Demarest. They're like most of our celebrity clients are there. They're generally homes that are 4 to 5 million. A lot of requirements, a lot of local requirements. So being that I am the local guy, all the realtors know me, all the builders know me. I've become the common thread. Like I'll routinely hear 3 or 4 contractors interview with somebody, and all 3 of them are like, "Why don't you go talk to Dan and plan?" So that's how we've gotten there. And then the other side of it is through the course of what we've been doing on Instagram, we are now doing houses everywhere. We're doing one for a famous magician in Vegas, actually. We've got
I think
one
I know
that
the
we're starting
name.
up in Virginia, one in Delaware. Yeah, and it's just such a fun ride, and I feel so lucky that I'm doing it. I just turned 40, so to have started the company when I did, I feel like I have a lot more room to run, and I'm excited about that.
That's fantastic. So, what kind of projects are you working on currently, and are there any during this process of your journey that you can really think that's part of my heart and soul? I'm at that level now.
That's such a hard question to answer. I don't think I'll ever feel that way. Truthfully, I think
Mm.
maybe it's ADD, which I fall victim to, but I'm always looking at what's next. Like, where does this fit into the overall picture? I think that I'm getting to the point where I've developed my own style. And I mean that in a very humble way. Like, I don't look at somebody coming to me to get one of my houses. It still comes from what a person wants, or it's rooted in my client's desire for what they want their home to be. But I feel like I've created a narrative, or there's a linear process that I've adopted where it starts with the site and it ends with the way that you're able to see maybe a tree through a corridor.
Hmm.
That it's just become a formula for my houses. And what I most appreciate, which isn't the best for marketing, is that and now this is the crazy thing about architecture. So, and especially when I started, because COVID was right in the middle, it takes like a good 3 to 4 years for a
True.
sketch that you did to be fully furnished and landscaped and able to visit. And every like photographers, publicists, they go to these things and it's like, we can't really capture how beautiful this is, which is like a really great compliment. And that's what I try to do. That's another reason why I brought in Plan Interiors. Like very few people photograph architecture. So getting that lineage, I know I'm getting a little off track. That's the ADD.
Oh, no, it's all right.
Coming back through.
Hey, it's all about you.
Finally, my wife would love to hear that. Like, I'm like, I came home for this. I'm in my basement right now, but I'm like thoroughly worried about my wife coming down here and because she's the most supportive, amazing person. I'm so happy with her, but she would make fun of anything I say about myself that it'll be her impersonation of me. Well, you know, the light and the trajectory of my journey. I could imagine it. I'm praying she doesn't come down. Yeah, I mean, I think that the nature of me starting a project to the end of it, understanding organizing principles, understanding when you walk through the door, are you seeing through the house or not seeing through the house? It's a very Kantian thing. Lou Kahn, I would say, is like my absolute favorite architect. And what he used to do was he would, like his buildings, I'd probably get a lot of flack from you that's into architecture. I don't think his buildings are really that beautiful. But like when you're in them and you experience the experience is entirely, it's unlike anything that I could put into words. And I feel like I've been able to set those relationships up in my buildings. And that's been, and in houses nonetheless, right? Like you don't think of a house as having the ability to have that Kantian feel, but it's there.
So what is the Dan D'Agostino and Plan Architecture design aesthetic or signature?
It's without a doubt the expanses of windows. We tend to create traditional styled homes that have modern components to them. I don't feel like I'm articulating that very well, but you'll take your average colonial home that fits into our standard neighborhood here, and then you'll see this like glowing tower at night, or this that's usually the stair, so that'll bring some light in on both levels. And they're standout. I happen to live in a house that I designed. I built it back in 2017, and to this day we'll be in our living room and we'll just see like a flash at night, and it's somebody taking a picture of the stair. Like these little moments that you would never imagine, but somebody's driving by and take a picture of the house, and it's those things. And we have gotten to the point where people will send me a picture of a home and they'll say, "Hey, was this yours? It looked like one of yours."
Right.
And I'm always offended when it isn't, and I don't think it's it's a good one. But I got to keep that under wraps.
Since you did your own home, were you your own worst critic or client?
100%.
How many revisions did you do?
So if you ask the builder, he said I was doing drawings of drawings as we were going through the project. So truthfully, I knew what I wanted. I had a very good idea of the plan. So I would say the plan and the overall picture came together in like the first weekend. I was just so excited. I mean, I didn't do anything other than that. And then it got into the realm of, well, what if I can't afford this and I have to sell it? I got to make it a little bit less for me. So like every time I went through that, it was a little less architect looking, right? And then my wife would get involved and she'd constantly knock sense into me. She's like, why are you going to do a cantilever like that? And I'm like, how did you know cantilever? I mean, she goes, I hear you talking about this all the time. I would say that I love doing it. I would probably do the house exactly, because I get this question a lot. I would do the house exactly as I would again. However, I'm constantly wanting to redecorate, redesign, redo the kit. Like it's a problem because you walk like I will literally go on a Friday night. I got nothing to do, and then I go downstairs. I'm looking around the basement. I'm like, if I just move this over, this could be a different room. Fortunately, I'm busy at work, so it never actually
Yeah.
comes to fruition.
Well, that's good.
But it's really hard for me to do something alone. Because I happen to do some properties, 1 or 2 a year, where I buy a property and I build a house and I sell it to express myself without the client. And it's difficult to do because you're making every decision, and not just the big ones. A lot of architects fantasize about not having architects, or a lot of architects will joke about how the house would have been great if it wasn't for the client. I don't really feel that way. And I genuinely mean that. I think that having a client with a vision that your job is to enhance, that's the easiest for me to do. I appreciate that.
What inspires and motivates you as a creative?
Everything. I love music. That's one thing that I truly, truly enjoy. I really enjoy watching other architects work. Instagram is great for that, because I'm exposed to people all across the country that I never would have known about. Why? Because they probably wouldn't have been published, or if they were published, I'm not seeing that because you're only really seeing national publication. There are architects that have YouTube channels that I just absolutely love what they're doing. And I'm not much of a TV person. I rarely have time to even go on YouTube. But when I do, it's before I'm about to go to bed, and I will get butter. I can't watch the stuff because I get so excited. Say, oh my God, that was awesome. Or the way that they did that, or even learning about technology. I'm a doer. I'm not a sidelines type of guy. So watching something coming together on the screen, it's I gotta temper my dopamine when it's coming up. And the other part of it is my kids. I have 2 kids. I have a 5-year-old and a 9-year-old, and man, they are so creative, and they ask questions. My son, he's the younger one. He's constantly asking me questions about, why is that like that? Why is this here? And they're architecture related, mostly the ones that I think that are impressive. But just to see the world through the eyes of that they are, watching them walk through space, they set up where the sun is,
Mm-hmm.
right? Those little things that or not, if it's a cold day or a warm day, seeing how you start to see human nature without the distractions in the kids. And that to me helps me create spaces that feel natural.
Are there any particular buildings that you can think of within the Northeast corridor or outside that are that you're really drawn to?
Well, a standout. The Northeast is great, but the weather conditions make it really hard, in my opinion, to do buildings that are major. So, of course, I've got the Guggenheim. I've got New York City. There are wonderful buildings everywhere. There's a great little Usonian enclave outside of the town I'm in, just over the Rockland border. But they're going to Lucan. I convinced my wife while we were in Los Angeles to drive down to La Jolla, where the Salk Institute is. And she absolutely went kicking and screaming. She said, I can't believe we're only on the West Coast for this number of days. You want to go see a building? Yeah, I want to go see a building. And we get there, and it's early, and she's like, this is what we visit. It's to her, do you know the Salk Institute?
Yeah,
familiar
I do.
with? All right. Yeah. So it's, all raw concrete. That's the best way that an untrained person would see it. And we go there, and we got there really early, and we're waiting for them to open. She can't, she's literally we gotta go. And we're sitting in a parking lot, and I kid you not, a car pulls up next to us, and the guy gets out of the car. He's wearing a suit that was a jumpsuit, and he walks not even 50 feet to the edge of the cliff, and then jumps off and then throws out this thing. And he's like, parasail. And the two of us are like, what are we doing? Where are we? So now it turns out we're by a place called Black's Beach where people are doing these cliff jumps. A person pulls up with a dog in a Volkswagen. They open this little shack. I'm like, babe, let's get lunch while we're waiting for the Salk to open. A guy takes our order, turkey club, avocado, closes the gate, gets in the car and leaves. I'm like, what are we doing? The guy comes back like 15 minutes later with just a loaf of bread and an avocado. Like he literally bought the stuff to make our sandwich. We go to the Salk and we spent the entire day there. We went into the courtyard and she was just so moved by the experience that, and so was I. We went through 2 tours. There was like the basic tour that we did. And then we were like, let's go for the extended tour. We went for the extended tour and we were only supposed to be there for a short period of time. We got to see how the sun came over the courtyard. We got to see how the fountain runs through the center. It was just an amazing, and we've done them all, right? We've gone to Falling Water. We've done, whenever we go anywhere, it's around architecture. But that was the best experience I think I've ever had with them. I would do the same thing day over day because it was just a great experience to be there.
Your firm recently, I think, won an AIA gold medal for a mixed-use structure in Manhattan.
Yes. Yeah, that's a story and a half.
Well, let's hear that story. That's what we're here for, Dan.
So depending on who you ask, I did or I didn't win a gold medal. So, I'll explain that one to you. So I was, I did a mixed use building. It was in Lower Manhattan. And the point of the building was to come up with a prototype for how a person would live in a city, be a part of the grid, but also create space for themselves. And it feels like it was yesterday. I was recounting it like it was yesterday, but the reality is that I was a student. I was in college. I went to NJIT, New Jersey Institute of Technology, and I submitted to the AIA. The AIA had a competition where they had professionals and students. I submitted to the student competition. They accepted it. And turns out that the day of this competition, this award ceremony, totally naive to it. I understand how the world works a lot better now today, but somebody says, hey, are you coming to this thing tonight? And I'm like, well, how'd you get my number? Well, I just think you should come. Well, why should I come? I'm asking questions. I'm a junior in high school. I think you should come down. It'd be probably great for you to come down. All right, I'll come down. So I go, and it's being held at a local museum in Montclair, New Jersey. And I show up and they're doing their announcements and they say, well, the student competition has been canceled because we only had a single applicant. And I remember sitting there, I'm like, this guy calls me, makes me come to this event. Why would they make me come? And why? Like, I could have had that on my resume. I could have won. I was the only one. So I'm sitting there and the event is going on and it comes down to the main event, the main design category. And they talk about the third place and then they talk about the second place. And again, I'm still like just sitting there, this kid sweating in a room. And they start, it's architectural critic Duo Dickinson is up there and he's talking about basically describing my project. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. How could this be? Sure enough, I wind up winning first place. Gensler had won 17 years in a row prior to me this year. And I accept the award and I step down. And I remember like a really smug architect who's still involved in architecture in the area. He turns to me, he goes, I bet you think you're hot shit right now. You're in this room and you beat all these architects. I said, it feels good. It feels good. He goes, well, you didn't really win. I said, well, what do you mean? He goes, you're supposed to be an architect. Are you an architect? I said, well, I'm not licensed, but he goes, yeah, I don't think you're going to win. So a long story short, wow. I did win. I still have the medal, but if you look it up, they're not saying that I'm not recognized. So as a result of that, I don't have a great. I'm a member of the IA, but I don't really partake in the design awards or anything like that any longer. But it's. I feel like having the ability to say that story is better than it being listed on the website.
True, absolutely. You've been quoted to say, "Without light, there is no architecture." What do you mean by that? I like that saying. I like that quote.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what this all is. Like all the famous guys, Kahn and Corbusier, Ando, they talk about light. I think that just being who we are as human beings, you're drawn to light, and I routinely start the project. One of my first questions is, do you want the sun to rise or set in your bedroom? You'd be shocked how few people ever think of that. And the natural reaction is, oh, I like light. And then the second reaction is like, well, I don't know if I want it waking me up. Like what, how do I want to handle that? And that is just a genesis for the rest of the house. Like in my home, it's oriented so that my property faces west. The front door faces west. And I wanted my home is 3,800 square feet. So in our area, that's not a small house, but it's certainly not typical. Like the most houses in my area are around 5,000 or 6,000 square feet, which meant that I had the opportunity to make a house that looks long, but also shallow in depth. And I did that so that in my living room, I could get both the sunrise and the sunset. And why would anybody really care about that? I guess a lot of people wouldn't care about that, but me being the designer that I am, I thought about it. You know, the footprint of the house carved out an area that we wound up putting the pool. So we're maximizing solar exposure. I mean, you physically cannot perceive space without light, right? Like if there's no light in a room, you could never tell how big the room is. And I think that that's an important part of architecture. I feel like I'm able to be more critical of the things around me, the more that I'm doing things, and not in a pompous way. But when I drive past a house that doesn't make sense, or I even have people come to me, they say, listen, we bought this house, we're just not sure what to do with it. Usually if you just give them more light, you're like, that's 95% of making the house better. Right. The other 5% is the organization. So that's you could look at it in a very philosophical way, and I can take that all the way to the end, or just at surface value, more light is more good. And that's it.
Makes sense. I completely get it. So
yeah.
How do you, is there a particular project that you can highlight that challenged you creatively and how you overcame those challenges?
Yeah. I mean, every one of them has a little something that hits you. Sometimes it's a surprise. But we've got one right now that I've seen the property a couple times through different owners that never went through with it. And the reason for that is because there's so much regulation. So this property happens to be in Franklin Lakes, and it's a large property. It's actually 3.5 acres. Just Franklin Lakes is another enclave where there's a lot of celebrities that live. It's it's northern New Jersey, but west of the city, about an hour west of Manhattan. This property it was subdivided, has wetlands. The wetlands keep getting worse every time the Army Corps of Engineers comes up with new standards. So the clients that I'm currently working with, they bought the property and I got my chance to go at it. And the engineer has been on the property for almost all of the 20 years. And he couldn't believe, it's going to sound like I'm not bragging, but I'm really proud of the way that we're looking at the property in a way that it hasn't been conceived before. And even the engineer who's been on this for 20 years, like, I never thought to look at it like that. And it was totally a response to what the client was looking to do. They had photos and, you twist the door and you bend the driveway and all of a sudden you got a new orientation on the structure and now because so many people know about the property because it has been for sale. It's really great. Like I've got people coming up to me saying, I saw the renderings that you did there. How did you pull that off? And, every time I think that we're past the point like that we figured it out, like another requirement comes up. So I wish that the challenge was figuring out how to, get it to cantilever over a waterfall like Falling Water did. But this one is trying to figure out how to navigate building zoning, wetland regulations while giving our client the house that they want.
Are most of your projects in the Northeast corridor in New Jersey, New York, or do you branch out elsewhere around the country?
So we're licensed in a couple of states. So we've done probably about 40 homes up in Saratoga, New York, just outside of the racetrack. I'm a lifelong resident of New Jersey, this area. So a lot of my network is just there. It wasn't until recently, maybe 3 or 4 years, that we started taking on projects in Florida and outside of New York. And through social media, like we're getting a lot of people that are looking for us to do what we're doing here in their states. So in the last 3 weeks, we got a project in Delaware and another one in Virginia. So the goal is to do more of that, a lot more coastal work. Coastal work is really fun for me. I love shore homes because people just want to go there and have a good time and entertain, and the whole thing is fun.
Is there any other sectors that you want to delve into that you haven't had the chance to actually have that project come to you?
Yeah, the Hamptons has a lot of homes that I really appreciate. There are some architects out there that they're doing great work. And what they've managed to do there is they've created a little vernacular that doesn't really accept and is certainly not as well accepted as it is there outside of that area. So when I'm doing a home, I'll get a lot of clients that show me projects that they saw in the Hamptons, and I'm getting to do it over here. I'd love to do some work in that area because you just got the freedom. I don't have to sell everybody on the style, and it's a very natural style to me. Like if I were to build a coastal home for myself, I could probably do it in an hour because I know exactly what I wanted to do. I know what the ideal should be. I love that cedar shake that weathers, and it's probably not the best for maintenance. My clients love vinyl and hardy, they really do, and I understand it. But there's something beautiful about those Hampton aesthetics that are just commonly accepted.
I'm sold. I'd live there in a second. No doubt.
Have you spent time out there?
A little bit when I lived in Manhattan. I lived in the East Side near Union Square, and I also lived in Gramercy Park area for a number of years. So
you know what it's like, and being in the city is so inspiring. So doing some penthouses would be awesome. Some interior. I never was really into that until I got the interior firm. I always wanted to come out of the ground with something, but it comes down to space. Like I love to be able to highly detail a master suite, primary bathroom. Just I'm getting closer and closer to the details. That it's the truth. Yeah.
Designers and architects often comment that their work is part design and part psychology, and kind of goes back to when you get a client, it's that communication, that dating time you spend with a client. How do you feel about that?
Yeah, I am more frequently, less frequently doing architecture, more frequently doing psychology. And there's
marriage counseling, all sorts of things sometimes.
There have been times that I was sitting at the table and my phone is going off and I saw the guy's name come up on my phone that was sitting at the table with me. So I grab it right away and he says, "Do not listen to what she said." So I'm sitting at the table and I'm like, how do I say that? How do I even tell them that this is all right. So I like to think that what I'm doing is helping people enhance their lives, right? Like,
Mhm.
so in order for me to do that, I have to understand what they're going to value. Um, and there are some people that they value just being in control, right? Like they want to be the
True.
person that originates each idea. They want to be the person, and you kind of like, it's like one of those things where you have to convince them that it was their idea. Um, there are other people that are going into this, and they've lived their entire life going up to this house, and in their mind it's such a perfect thing, and everything's going to be on schedule and under budget. And the reality is that it'll be this perfect picture in your mind, but we're going to sit together. I'm going to ask you 1,000 questions. You're not going to realize it. And I say it to people all the time. It's like one of those diagrams of those trees where I'm going to ask you, do you want the sun to rise in your bedroom or not? And if you say
Right.
yes, I'm going to go this way. If you say no, I'm going to go that way. By the end, I've got this picture of what you think you want. You're going to change your mind 1,000 times. And then after you change your mind 1,000 times, we're going to then draw this up into a set of directions that 250 tradespeople are going to touch over the course of 2 years. And I'm trying to figure out how you're going to want to live in 5 years, 10 years, 15, 30. I mean, Freud, I'm familiar with his teachings. He would have a blast as an architect because you hear it all, you think it all, you see it all. And you going through, people hate to make decisions. That's like it's like the age old relationship thing. What do you want for dinner? Right.
Mhm.
I'm designing the place that you're going to eat that dinner or
Right,
cook that
exactly.
dinner or prepare the dinner or lay down after dinner. So it's more psychology, but you know what? That's why every house looks different though. That's why I exist. That's why custom design exists. Otherwise it would just be the fabricated mass produced world if it wasn't for psychology.
True, true. Stucco everywhere.
That's right. EFIS.
EFIS. Um, is there a project that you can think of that took a unforgettable transformation where it started in this direction and then ended up here, either by design and purpose or because of the client or just because of various elements?
Yes. I have a house that I'm working on right now. I started with a different property with a different house that through the process of us designing for them, they realized that the home that we were putting together wasn't the right home for them.
Mhm.
And when we went to make changes to that house, we discovered that the property wasn't the right property for them. So it was like a Thursday, 5 o'clock. I had to tell them, guys, we're running out of um, land area, impervious. I mean, these are all zoning issues, but I understand that you want these rooms to be bigger, and I agree. But it's just not like it's not going to work here. And Monday morning, like at 7, I got a text message. Uh, got great news, and our offer was. I didn't even know they were looking. They got a new property, and what started as a very like transitional style home turned into this English manor, which I have renderings. I should share them with you. And it's an estate. It's a compound. It really is. It's a massive 12,000 square foot main house. That's the footprint so big that we have to have a flat roof, but you'd never know there was a flat roof because
Wow.
it looks like an English colonial home with this. It's a stone mansion, federal aesthetic, and then the pool house is so it's like an entire estate that we've created. And actually, Monday they get their final inspections before they start putting sheetrock up. So that was about a year and a half ago that we started on this new property, and it's still going through approvals. Again, New Jersey is such a regulated state that this property happens to be. It's got 2 front yards. It's a through street, so you
Mhm.
choose which side is your front yard. And if you go to do
Hmm.
a pool, inevitably you're going to have a pool in your front yard, which isn't permitted. So we have to get an
Gotcha.
approval, a special permission to have a pool for this property.
Interesting. Have you ever received any really odd or quirky design requests from clients?
Yes. Yeah. I'll keep the G-rated ones.
We're not
You-
censored.
well,
It's okay.
I blush. So,
Okay.
I mean, literally, I've had people say that they want showers that can fit 6 or 7 people. And you don't ask. There's some people that tell you that I think, strange requests. I had a client that was dead serious that they wanted to be able to move in to their carriage house should he and his wife be fighting that week. So it was such an integral part of their relationship that I had to come up with a plan for when they weren't talking to each other. So that was an interesting one. I have another client that a go-kart track is really important to them.
I like that. Wow.
Truthfully, it's 2.5 acres, and we sited the house on the property so that they could get, maximize the track. So you never ever know what's gonna. And then you get the midway through the project, we're done, we're ready to submit, and they decide they're taking an in-law in, or they're pregnant. So you wind up with a whole different set of criteria. It's very fun to do what we're doing.
Some creatives like the client collaboration. Others just want to be asked what to do, have a program, and then go design and come back. How much are involved your clients, or it just depends on the project itself? And do you enjoy the collaboration?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, there is, without the client, there's no project for me. I mean, and I'm not being cute when I say the client is the best and sometimes the worst part of the process, right? Like, when they're able to articulate what they want, there's nothing better. And like my job, the way I look at my job is I'm creating spaces that are meant to enhance your life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not creating spaces that you need because you're supposed to have a mudroom or a powder room. So when the client is telling me what they want, I'm trying to find the best opportunities I don't want to hear like, I liken it to like if you go to the doctor and your hand hurts, you don't tell them that your finger's broken. You like let them do what they have to do to figure out what's going on.
Self-diagnosis, yeah.
Self-diagnosis. One of the things that I'm like a huge coffee drinker, right? One of the things I did when I did my house, never seen it before. Now it's more common. I right outside of in my primary suite, outside of my bathroom, is like a little wet bar with a coffee station. Because I wake up, I make a coffee, I take a shower, and I grab the coffee, and I'm getting ready in the morning with it. Like it's just like a part of my day. Like I know what my life was like before that, and it wasn't bad, but
Right.
It's just like such a better. I'm not going downstairs. It's just a better, more easily flowing morning.
Yeah.
And that's just one small example of it,
Is there any last minute rescues that you can think of? A time when you faced unexpected design challenges or setbacks?
Yeah. I mean, I want to say no, because I feel like I'd rather take a heck of a lot longer to do the plans, but inevitably we do wind up with situations where when I built my house. So long story short, I bought a property that I subdivided with my best friend. My best friend is a builder. And in the middle of the project, he decided that he needed to create a home office for himself. And it needed to be separate from the rest of the house. And we're walking through, and we were just in the middle of construction. The studs were all wide open. I said, what if we do something over here? Now I walk under the stair through the stud framing, and I said, what is this? I'm like, maybe we could get through this way. And we turned around and we looked and said, yeah, maybe that'll be the way that we can get in and out. We were framed, all the construction was up, and I just actually walked through the wall between two studs. It's like, well, what if we come in this way? And then we both looked at the way that I walked through the room. Like, that's what we should do. So we wound up doing like a hidden panel under a landing. And, I'm not being coy when I say that. Like, I do everything in 3D. We study these, like, I feel like we know everything about the project before it even comes out of the ground. And it allows our client to know that. So fortunately, there are not very many surprises while we're going through. Water is always fun. Sometimes we have to raise basements, but that's not we don't want to talk about.
Some creatives, be it architect or interior designers, try to put a sentimental touch or some element of their own personality into the design. Do you do that?
I don't think I do. I'm so trying to get into a client's head that it's stream of, it sounds cliche, but at a certain point, it's stream of consciousness. Like, I can almost draw without thinking about what I want to do.
Mm-hmm.
I will say this. I think that each time, so every project, even though like I think that they're great and I give it to them, I never have a client just say, you know what, that's perfect. That's exactly what I want. Because the way that I do this, it's more of a challenging thing. So like, I'll say, I did this. This is what you wanted to do, but I think you might want to consider X, Y, Z, and they give me their opinion.
Right.
But I will tell you that the more revisions that a project goes through, it doesn't necessarily mean that it's getting better. It's just getting different. And specifically when it comes to exterior design, like, mm-hmm. I have a pretty strong design sense when it comes to designing the exterior of a building. I'm pretty consistent with my form making. So there's like a little bit of that psychology of design. So it's not like I'm leaving a part of myself with them. It's not like I like a special color or a special window or anything like that. But the more that the project is revised and revised and revised, the more watered down it gets and the less I think successful it is. So it may just be some inner psychology of myself saying, I really like what I like. And the fact that this is not what I like, it's not as good of a project. Or I don't know, we could probably psychoanalyze that forever. But and we'll never get anywhere. We'll never get anywhere with it. But that, I don't try to force anything on people, but I do have a balance that I like to achieve, specifically with how it relates to the street. I think that's important.
That's true. Technology is advancing so rapidly, and I started in my career, everything was, hand to paper. How do you see emerging technologies influencing the future of design? And does it limit creativity, or is it helping assist it?
So I think,
and how did you and your firm use that?
So, from the very beginning, I graduated in 2006. I graduated college in 2006, and we were at the time, you had to do like your first year or two, you had to draw by hand. And I was naturally I was good at drawing. And I didn't really gravitate to the computer as a kid, which is weird because now I'm all about the computer. I used to think of it as cheating, almost like a band doesn't want to write pop songs because they don't want to sell out. Like, right. I didn't want to do things the easy way. The way I look at it now, I'm telling you, even this last weekend, I'm working with AI to try to figure out how to get to the finish line quicker and more accurately. And we've got, it's not happening in real time. So like what I'll do is I'll do my presentation for my clients, but I will over the weekend just play around with AI prompts and figure out how to get as close as possible to what I want. And it's so far away from where it needs to be. But the beautiful thing is I'll have a meeting with the person, and from a hand sketch, I'll pop it into AI and give them an idea of like what this is starting to look at very, very early on. The 3D, like I almost feel like it's trite at this point. There's still architects around me that are not doing it, but I feel like I was the first one in my area to do like a 3-dimensional model of a mudroom addition to a house because I cared that much about like, and what I remember when I was working at other firms, we'd have this moment where we were worried about the client showing up to the job site because we weren't sure if they were going to like it or not. And it's never that. Like and like that's such a basic thing to say, but I never have a client show up to a job site and say, I don't like it, or I didn't know that this was going to look like that. And, you know, the latest thing we've got, the wonderful thing about celebrity clients is that they require that we keep quiet. We don't say who they are or anything like that, but they also allow us to do things that you would never see before. So there's this new technology called Walk the Plan. Have you seen this?
Mm-mm.
Okay. So what we did was we took our plans and we aligned them with elevations, and we created like this 2-dimensional 3D model, if that makes any sense. So we created these spaces and we sent them, they flew out to Texas, and this company projected their floor plans with their elevations on the floor and on the wall.
Oh, wow.
So they truly walked around their house, and the place is set up so that there's beds of various sizes, and those are set up on the walls. And the client, they actually made changes after they walked through the plan, which was just our paper drawing at full size, but on LED floor tiles.
Huh. I have not heard of that program.
You got to check it out. It's very interesting.
Yeah. So what's next for Dan and Plan Architecture?
I think it's more execution. I think it's better, higher designed homes, meaning a lot more detail in them. I could see that we're starting to attract clients that are looking for that, which is fun for me. It's a challenge for sure. A lot of integrated design. So where our interior design isn't just nice furniture and a wall covering on a feature wall, we're starting to create space architecturally and in interior design, which is really exciting. And hopefully some of those homes in the Hamptons, that'd be a nice thing to bring into the portfolio.
So I'm going to ask you, because I see it behind you, in your spare time, you're a musician? Or are you just like getting the guitar and zoning out?
I do. I should probably show you. So there's a lot more than just that, right?
Oh.
So like,
geez.
Yeah, no, it's yeah. So I started playing when I was 16, and I still play, and I actually go to lessons with somebody from LA. There's a famous store called Norm's Rare Guitars out in LA, and Angela Petrilli, who's one of the players there, is my guitar instructor. And I wish I had more time, to be honest with you, but it's a hobby. I love it. Like each one of these have a story. I work on them. I love it.
That's fantastic.
You weren't expecting that, right? That wasn't.
No,
that was
I wasn't. I thought maybe 2 more. Someone has a problem.
Yeah, there's 27 right now. There's 27.
Wow. Well, Dan, before we wrap up, is there anything else you want to share and tell our listeners about you and Plan and how to get a hold of you? And
yeah, I mean, I think the best thing is to find us on Instagram, Plan Architecture, one word. It's what I do is it's not work. It's something that I love to do. Anybody that reaches out to me, it becomes a fun, personal connection. And I just hope that I continue having this wonderful opportunity to meet cool people doing cool things and making a very little impact on their life. That's
fantastic.
That's the most important thing for me.
So will you design your own home again? Will you do a 2.0?
I would. I want to do a coastal home. That's where that's where if I set a goal for myself, I'd love to be on the water.
Jersey Shore or Hamptons?
So I'm not going to sell out Jersey. There, LBI, Long Beach Island is like, it's got a very special place in my heart.
There you go. Well, sir, I appreciate your time and coming on our show today. It's been a thorough pleasure to have you. Enjoy, and I thank you.
Likewise. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care.
You too.